Hello to everyone logged in for this evening's webinar. We're going to get started in 5 minutes at the top of the hour. Hello and welcome in everybody to this evening's webinar. Habits that lead to confidence. I'm so glad to be with all of you this evening and thank you for investing your valuable time in spending time with me. Before we get started, I always like to give a huge shout out to Justin Gray and the entire crew at 99 The Agency. I'm grateful for them to bring me in and share with you all the wonderful talent out there in the world. Some key human skills, those are the things I normally focus on. So tonight we're going to be talking about the habits that lead to confidence. Thank you to Justin and the crew for having me in. And also grateful to 99 The Agency for providing these things to you, the members. It's it is very rare that companies will provide a varied amount of trainings and continued development. And I really give 99 a lot of props for doing that. For those of you that have been in rooms with me before, welcome back. It's always great to have return people coming back into the rooms and absorbing the information, hopefully sharing the information with others. For those of you that are brand new and have never been in one of my programs before, hello. My name is Rob Hinds, and the name of my company is Raise Your Lid Consulting. I unlock and unleash the potential in people and their businesses, and I do this in three ways. I do it through personal and professional coaching services. I do it through developmental training programs, which is one of the things you're going through tonight. The programs that I do for 99 The Agency are what I call my micro learning programs, where we spend a short amount of time with each other and you leave with simple, actionable, and valuable skills. I also do larger training programs that are half day, full day, multiple days, ongoing progressive training programs. And I focus mostly on things like communication, neuroscience, leadership, emotional and social intelligence, conflict reconciliation, and much like we're talking about tonight, habits. And tonight it's all about habits that build confidence. So I welcome you all into the room and glad to be with everybody. As far as questions go, here's how it normally works in my rooms. If you have a question about any of the material that we have this evening, please put your questions into the Q&A or chat. And at the very end of the presentation, I've left enough time to where I'll be able to answer everybody's questions before we log off. Please be very clear in the question you're asking. It's not necessary to give me a lot of background or a huge story around your question. If you would ask your question clearly and directly, and make sure it is attached to the information we're talking about this evening. I know there are multiple other programs that I and others do for 99 The Agency. Let's make sure we keep our questions appropriate to tonight's presentation. Also, if you would like to put either comments or thoughts into the Q&A or the chat, you're more than welcome to do that. However, I will only be reading and responding to the questions that are asked. So please do put your questions in, and I look forward to seeing those at the end of the presentation. The reason why I do these programs and the reason why 99 The Agency found these programs to be not only beneficial to all of you, but very important. First of all, we're addressing challenges that many people have. For example, tonight is all about confidence. All of us at one time or another, we're at different levels of our confidence. We may be at different levels of our confidence with different people or in certain situations. However, it is addressing the challenges of many. The goal here is not to fully embrace the whole idea around confidence. It's really for all of you to leave with very simple, very actionable information that even if you took one part of tonight's presentation and started to apply it, chances are you would see good results if you're consistent with those efforts. And then finally, it's really to provide a path for positive development and improvement. There are a lot of things out there to learn. There are a lot of things that, may be out there so much. There may be some misinformation out there. However, everything that I bring to you is researched and factual. None of what I share with you is my opinion. Everything I do is backed by research. Okay, let's start to dig into this. As far as confidence goes, there are a lot of elements to confidence. However, the main two elements of confidence is a sense that you're doing well. You feel like you're confident either in your abilities or you're confident in your communication, you're confident in your personality or your persona. Just a sense that you're doing well. That's one of the key elements within confidence. The other key element of confidence is a sense that we are improving. And this is where programs like this, I'm looking to meet you wherever you're at. I also do this with my clients on a very personal and very deep level. Being where you're at is great and doing well is great. However, the one thing that continues to build confidence is the sense that you're improving, the sense that you're learning, the sense that you're getting better, even the sense that you might be diminishing the things that are restricting you from building your confidence. So, a sense that you're doing well and a sense that you're improving, those are two really main key elements of building your confidence. These are all the things, and each of these things I'm going to break down individually just in little pockets for you this evening. Of course, we have so much time. Um, I have so much time with you this evening, so I'm going to break each one of these down a little bit. Take an honest look at yourself. Listen more than you speak. Speak with certainty. Seek out small victories. Get your fulfillment from within. Get moving. Don't be afraid to be wrong. Celebrate other people's successes. Get right with people and be the part. Act and look accordingly. Now, as you look at this list, and again, we're going to break these things down. However, when you generally look at this list, you may look at this list and say, you know what? Some of these things I'm really doing well with, I'm really feeling good about. There may be other things on this list where you're struggling. Some of these things on your list, maybe you've never even thought of or heard of before. So, regardless where you're at in your growth journey or your confidence level, these are a lot of different habits that we'll dig into a bit further. First, take an honest look at yourself. The reason this is first is very intentional because this is the part normally where people skip because it's the hardest, it's the most challenging, and when you take an honest look at yourself, an honest look, you really decide, am I as confident as I think I am? Am I as doing as well as I think I am? And great, if those honest answers are yes, you're heading down the right path. There's always room for improvement. However, when you take an honest look at yourself, everything we do starts and ends with us looking at ourselves. It's easy to blame other people. It's easy to blame the environment, blame the government, blame other things, look at other people and say, well, these are the people that are holding me down. When you take an honest look at yourself, all of us in the room are adults. We have choices we can make. What are the choices you're making? And is it contributing to building a level of confidence or is it not? Then, when you take an honest look at yourself, you say, okay, here's my true abilities. Here's the things I do well. Here's the things I specialize in. It could be, here's the things that I'm really passionate about and I want to grow and build. So, when you take an honest look at yourself, you want to take a look at the strengths to build upon. Taking an honest look at yourself doesn't necessarily mean it's all about the negative things or the things that aren't going well. Also, take a look at the things that are going well and build upon them. Then the other side of that coin is looking at the challenges, looking at maybe if you call them your weaknesses or you call them your areas of growth opportunity. However, you like to look at things that really need improvement, looking at your challenges to figure out what are those challenges? What are the things holding you back from confidence? What are the things that I need to do differently? And then overcoming those challenges. So the two parts of this is continue to build on your strengths. That normally takes a lot more of your time, energy, and effort because you're good at something, building on that is great and it's very impactful. However, we also do need to take some time and not obsess over it, but we do need to build our areas of growth opportunity. Um, if it's challenges we're having or difficulties we're having, or if we're just simply not good at something, and we want to get a little bit better, figuring those things out and figuring out the outcomes around them. That's take an honest look at yourself. Oof. I told you the reason we did take an honest look at yourself comes first because everything starts with us. The reason I put this second is very intentional because actually, true active listening is one of the most difficult human skills there is to build. The reason is because we're all self-absorbed. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to think about ourselves. Self-absorbed can be a bad thing, but it's also a natural thing. Thinking about ourselves is very important. When we do that, many times we're not as good of listeners as we think we are. You know, there's a lot of things out there that all of us think we're really good at. You know, one of the things is many people believe that they're really, really good drivers. There are also many that are not. However, they think that way. Listening is the same way. Many people believe that they're really good listeners. However, they may not be as good as they think they are. So when it comes to listening more than you speak, this is where learning happens. The way the brain works, learning doesn't happen while you're speaking. Learning happens when you're ingesting information, you're reading the room, you are listening to people, absorbing information, absorbing energy. All of those things help you to learn, but the more you're talking, the less you're learning. So listen more than you speak. It's easier said than done. And when we do what we talked about first, taking an honest look, I would encourage all of you to take an honest look to see how good truly of a listener you are. Next is speak with certainty. So we addressed the listening piece. Now we're going to address the speaking piece. When you speak with certainty, it is a great habit in order to build confidence. And you've noticed, all of us have really good receptors on other people, what they what they appear, how they sound, what they even look like in certain situations, their body language, all those other things. So when you speak with certainty, first thing I encourage you to look at is your word choice. When we're talking about word choice, we're talking about things like the difference between, oh, I'm so stupid. That's word choice that is self-demeaning. When you switch that around and you say something like, oh, you know what? I did something really stupid. However, I'm going to look at fixing that. That's very different. And when you're speaking with certainty, these are the things where it's not about fancy words. It's about the right words to speak with clarity and have other people understand you. Many times we assume that people should understand us and we might think we're speaking clearly, just like we think we're good drivers or we think we're good listeners. However, word choice becomes a big deal with that. Then there's tonality. What's the tone of your voice? Is your voice calming and soothing? Are you a high energy person and maybe you get real excited and jumbled up and you can't, you have trouble figuring out what the words are. And so your tonality has a lot to do with this. Tonality is also in pace. Do you need to speak a little bit slower with people? Do you need to speak a little bit quicker with people? So the tone of your voice has a lot to do with speaking with certainty. Then it comes down to your facial expressions and your body language. Sometimes people might say, "Oh, I'm okay," but their body language and their facial expressions say something different. So, do your facial expressions and body language match your message? That's where speaking with certainty comes into play because people who speak with true certainty, everything matches. Their word choice, their tonality, their facial expressions, their body language. When you're confident and you speak with certainty, all these things that are on the screen come together very nicely, and people recognize that. The next part of this, especially when it comes to confidence, is seek out small victories. For any of you in the room that might have really, really high expectations of yourselves, or big goals, or big dreams, absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, when we look at the big picture for long enough, sometimes it does become overwhelming. Sometimes it could affect our confidence or our ability to move forward. This is when I encourage all of you to seek out small victories. Anything that shows improvement or forward progress. Normally, when people say, Rob, I feel like I'm stuck, I feel like I'm not going anywhere, as we dig deeper into it, normally we could find something small that they've been doing well that they just haven't recognized because they're looking at the big picture so much. They're not seeing the small things that are really, really good and happening. So, forward progress and improvement is one of the things. Conquest of any size. If you happen to be a smoker, smoking one less cigarette a day, that's a start. That's a small win. That's a small victory. Um, if you happen to have a short fuse and your self-regulation is very low and you blurt out things or you interrupt people or you get mad easily, just controlling those things little by little, those are small conquests. So any conquest of any size gives you a small victory and helps you build momentum and build consistency. Celebrate. Anytime you have a small victory, celebrate. Whether it's buying yourself a cup of coffee or, reaching out to somebody or posting something positive on your social channels. Whatever it looks like, I strongly encourage you to celebrate the small stuff and not just the big stuff. The other part of celebrate, seek out small victories is help others celebrate. If you notice somebody that might be struggling and they take a small step, help them celebrate those small things. When you do that and you seek out small victories and you start to celebrate them and you're moving forward and you're progressing, these are the things that create momentum. Once you create momentum, everything around you becomes smoother, becomes easier. This is what really builds your true level of confidence. Man, there's not a lot of things stronger than building confidence when you have really good momentum. So that is seek out small victories. Next is get your fulfillment from within. This is a very, very difficult category for a lot of people, especially those of us in the entertainment industry. Getting your fulfillment is hard from within because many people suffer from comparison syndrome, um, imposter syndrome, all those other things because we're constantly looking around at others and we're comparing. When it comes to getting your fulfillment from within, it focuses on you. not others. So there's fulfillment and there's happiness. And I'm going to break that down for you a little bit. Fulfillment is when you truly feel good about everything on a consistent level. And you don't need constant affirmation and that sort of thing. And I know for a lot of us in the entertainment industry, it's tough because, egos get in the way and comparison gets in the way and even competition gets in the way. Although all those things help cloud you being fulfilled. When you could be fulfilled from within, it's much greater than happiness. And here's why. Fulfillment is internal and it's long lasting. Happiness comes from things on the outside and it's fleeting. Happiness can go up, happiness can go down. When you are truly fulfilled, that's an internal, smooth, wonderful, growing feeling. And the more you're fulfilled from within, this actually starts to come out of you as confidence. So, a habit of building your confidence is getting your fulfillment from within. Then there's get moving. And we hear this all the time. Get your body moving, get yourself going. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be through exercise, it could be through breathing exercises, meditation. There are so many things to where you get your brain and or your body moving. Are you starting to read books? Are you starting to join a club? The things you're watching, instead of doom scrolling on social channels, are you subscribed to Masterclass? And it's not just about high level things, but getting moving, getting your blood flowing. These are things that do help with confidence. You know, if you happen to be sitting in the basement binging Netflix days upon weeks upon months, that sort of thing. Those are the things that help you, that help keep you where you're at or even diminish you. And it's tough to grow levels of confidence. Get moving, whether it's your body and or your brain, any way you want to dice that out. Get moving is an important habit to building your levels of confidence. This is a hard one for people, especially with people that have a high level of self-importance or big egos, being afraid to be wrong. The reason why not being afraid to be wrong helps you build your confidence is because it's not a bothersome thing. You realize when you have a high level of confidence, you realize that being wrong is part of life. We're all wrong at some point. We're all wrong probably more than each of us think. The more you could be okay with being wrong in certain situations, the better you are. What that does is when you're not afraid to be wrong, you're okay with taking risks. Now, I'm not saying totally careless risks or risking your safety, risking your life, risking your sanity. I'm not talking about those types of risks. I'm talking more about calculated risks. You know, do you want to move to another city? Um, are you going to accept that audition or do that audition that you've been looking forward to? Taking risks like that. However, the more you can take calculated risks, the chances are that those risks would work out for you more than if you weren't to calculate those risks and you're just throwing it at the wall and seeing if it works. Another part of don't being afraid to be wrong is learn the lessons from when you are wrong. And we go back to the first thing we talk about tonight, take an honest look in the mirror. Are you learning the lessons from the things you've been wrong about? Or do you just keep doing what you're doing, maybe even arguing the point that you're not wrong and you're not learning the lessons? If you can take risks and learn the lessons of being wrong, the chances of you building your confidence are much greater. Then, are you able to adapt, adjust, and improve after a mistake? after something you feel isn't going well? Can you adapt? Can you adjust? Can you improve? Those are also things that help you build your levels of confidence. Celebrate other people's successes. There's something ingrained in all of us through our brain and through our bodies, the neuroscience behind it or the physiology around it, whether it's our brain or our bodies, actually celebrating other people's successes helps build yourself, build your own level of confidence. Because if you live constantly comparing yourself to other people, it's not helpful to yourself, which reflects in your confidence. However, if you could take a look and say, look, those people, even though they might be in competition with me, they're doing well. Good for them. I'm going to send them a text or a DM, celebrating them, letting them know. I actually spend time each week celebrating other people. I'll look to people either that I know or don't know. I'll see them doing something fantastic and I'll send them a message. For me, it does help because again, the more you celebrate others, it helps your body chemistry and your brain chemistry improve and gain confidence. However, just knowing doing that for others, making other people feel good about it is a great thing all the way around. Supporting others helps build their confidence, also helps you build your own inner strength. When you put your energy toward caring versus comparing, that's another way to kind of minimize and eliminate those feelings of imposter syndrome and comparison syndrome and that sort of thing. The more time and energy you spend on caring about others and caring about yourself, the less you worry about those other things that aren't helpful to you. It's also a great display of strong character. When people around you see you celebrating others, they remember that. They remember you for that. It's impactful. Now, even if they're not directly connected with you, just having that out there may give somebody else the confidence to do the same themselves. So it's almost kind of like a pay it forward type thing when we talk about it, but it also displays strong character when you could celebrate other people's successes. Oof. This is a tough one for many people. Getting right with people. Now, I do want to offer a very, very direct caveat to this. I don't mean get right with people that treat you poorly, that are disrespectful to you, that are bad or abusive to you. I'm not talking about getting right with those people. What I'm talking about is getting right with people that even either you have wronged or somebody you feel may be valuable or of value to you in your life. The first step of getting right with people is finding common ground. We all know there's so many divisive things in our communities right now. And it could be a number of things, but the division is not helping us get right with people because we're not finding common ground. Now, common ground doesn't mean you need to agree with somebody. Just understand that they have their own perspective, and that's okay. That's the way people are. So finding common ground is a big first step when getting right with people. Then the next step in this is making amends. Now, for people that might be part of addiction processes, addiction recovery processes, and that sort of thing, make amends is one of those steps. However, even without addiction, getting right with people by making amends, and again, it doesn't mean that somebody that has wronged you, you could still make amends with them. It doesn't mean you have to deal with them or still converse with them. It may be getting closure on something. It may be getting closure on a relationship or, something with a workmate that didn't go well. Making amends is a great step with when getting right with people. Another way to get right with people is just to respectfully And respectfully is the key term here. Respectfully disagree. We don't need to agree with people to get right with people. We just need to have an understanding that everybody has their own point of view, their own perspective. Or the other thing with getting right with people may be exiting gracefully, leaving the room if you don't like the conversation, um, leaving the party if you know if it's not settling well with you. Also, exiting relationships. Sometimes to get right with people, that needs to happen. We need to split ways and separate. Another part of exiting gracefully is even diminishing contact with people. It may not be that you need to go your separate ways. It could be that you're just not going to invest as much or a lot of time or energy into those people. That's getting right with people. Be the part, act and look accordingly. Now, a lot of this has to do with integrity. So, integrity basically says do what you say you're going to do. I call it right here, number one, walk the talk. In order to build your levels of confidence, when you actually walk the talk on things, it's an automatic builder of confidence. And you could really expound upon that and build and build and build. However, if you're not saying what you're going, if you're not walking the talk, it's very difficult to build real confidence. It is possible to build what I call faux or fake confidence. So people that believe in nonsense things like prove them wrong or fake it till you make it, those are just unhealthy, not honest things that might build some false confidence. When you really walk the talk and you have a high level of integrity, those are things that really build a high level of confidence in you. The other thing is don't be something or someone you're not. Now, for those of us in the entertainment industry, when we play roles, when we have a certain role or job or something to do, of course, I'm not talking about roles and that sort of thing. I'm talking about real life. Don't be something or someone you're not. If you're not something and you aspire to be something, then say that. Then be that. If you're aspiring to be a Grammy winning artist, great. Say, I aspire to be a Grammy winning artist. But acting like you're at the top of the world and that sort of thing when you're actually not, that's very detrimental to and affects your confidence internally. People with fake confidence that show it on the outside, they're not feeling it on the inside. The goal of this program is to get you feeling it on the inside. The last part of this is be the best version of yourself in all situations. This is very simple to say. It's not easy to do for many of us. And the reason why is sometimes you're just not having your best day. But can you still be, even in those moments, can you still be the best version at that moment? It doesn't mean you have to be perfect all the time or smiling and happy and fruitful all the time. It doesn't mean those types of things. However, wherever you're at and whatever you're feeling, can you at least elevate that to the best version of yourself? Now, when you can deal with difficult conversations in a very appropriate, very professional way, a healthy way, now you could really start to build your levels of confidence. So be the best version of yourself in all situations. Okay, we talked about all those skills around this. It also is important for me to share with you some of the detriments to improving confidence. These are the things that actually bring your confidence lower, whether it's your internal confidence, your external confidence. The first thing is making excuses or constantly justifying yourself. Those are things that bring your levels of confidence down very, very quickly. quitting things quickly. Now, it's not a bad thing to quit something that might be bad for you or something that's not moving forward. But if you're in the habit of constantly quitting, a lot of times we find this, especially in today's world. People ghost other people, or, they just don't show up for an interview without contacting the people in business. All those cowardly acts, those are things that, you might think you're quitting or that sort of thing, but there is a level of professionalism and a level of human connection that comes along with it. The other thing is blaming. If you're constantly blaming others, blaming your environment, if you're in a blaming state, that's something that quickly erases your level of confidence because you're spending time on probably a lot of things that might be out of your control. And even if you're in control, spending your mind space on blaming gets you nowhere. And in fact, it brings you down. Waiting for permission to act. And it may not be permission from somebody else, it may be giving yourself permission. We talked about taking calculated risks. If you're constantly scared of everything and you've got a lot of fear around you and you're not working through those fears, and we talked about it earlier, taking small steps to get small victories. If you're waiting for permission to act, the longer you wait, the less your confidence builds. If you're always seeking the spotlight. Now, I know all of us in the entertainment field, this is a real weird one because at the end of the day, we want to be seen, we want to be known. What I'm talking about is seeking the spotlight to the detriment of others. That's that's what actually makes people less confident in you. It may not lower your own confidence, but when you're constantly seeking the spotlight at the detriment of others, people's confidence in you diminishes or goes down. If you need constant praise, being affirmed and being seen, being heard, being valued, that's very important. But when it becomes a real true need in order for you to move through the day to day, that's when it lowers your level of confidence. If you're a procrastinator, if you're constantly putting things off, those are things that will diminish or lower your levels of confidence. If you're judgmental, if you're judgmental of yourself, if you're judgmental of others, these are things that diminish your confidence massively for both yourself and others having confidence in you. If you're judgy a lot, that's that's a low level of confidence. And when people see you're constantly judging other people or other things, their level of confidence in you lowers quite a bit. If you avoid conflict, conflict done the right way and healthy conflict is wonderful for building confidence if you're handling it appropriately. Now, if you handle conflict terribly, those are skills I would encourage you to build. And some of the programs that I do for 9-9, we talk about how to deal with conflict. But just simply avoiding conflict, not a good way to build your confidence. Then the last part of this is what I call detrimental comfortability. When you get in a comfort zone, it's okay for a while. However, when you start to get in a comfort zone and you're no longer improving or building on your skills or learning, when you start to get too comfortable, eventually your level of confidence goes down because you start to see the world moving past you. So those are the detriments to improving your confidence. All right. That was the list of all the things, all the habits that we're going to talk about that lead to confidence. Taking an honest look at yourself, probably one of the toughest ones. The next toughest one, listening more than you speak. Speaking with certainty and clarity. Seeking out and celebrating small victories. Getting your fulfillment from within instead of trying to gain happiness from others or getting your fulfillment from others. Getting it from within. Very, very helpful. Get moving. Get your brain moving, get your body moving, get your momentum going. Don't be afraid to be wrong. If you feel like you're never wrong, chances are you're stuck in the comfort zone and you're not doing anything differently. So don't be afraid to be wrong. Get out there, take some calculated risks, throw it out there and see what happens. Celebrate other people's successes. This is a mutually beneficial thing. When you celebrate other people's successes, it makes you feel good and it makes other people feel good. Win-win situation. Get right with people, whether it's making amends, whether it's exiting a relationship or a conversation. Getting right with people is very important. And then lastly, be the part, act and look accordingly. Do what you say you're going to do, live by your values, and those are all things that raise, all habits that raise your level of confidence. There's a couple really good quotes that I'll share with you this evening. There's a difference between conceit and confidence. Conceit is bragging about yourself, and we talked about that earlier. Confidence means you believe you can get the job done. At the end of the day, true confidence shows that you're in the game. False confidence shows that you're kind of muddling or faking your way through it, which is massively unhealthy. This is another one. Confidence cannot exist without competence. So it's really hard to have confidence if you're really not good at anything or don't become good at something. So confidence cannot exist without competence. True confidence grows from doing the work, learning your craft, building your skills so solid that you could trust yourself under pressure. That's the key. There's another quote out there that says, true character is revealed under duress or under pressure. That's when you really get to see the true character of yourself and you get to see the true character of other people. All right. So one of the gifts that I normally put out for everybody that take my programs, if you scan this QR code, I've created an outline for the program that we went through this evening. If you scan the QR code, you could save this into your device. You could make copies of it. You could hang it on your wall. You could not scan the QR code at all and just delete it. However, that's my gift to all of you, thanking you for your attention and your attendance. Now I'm going to go through all the questions. While I do that, here's all of my information. So please feel free to reach out, follow me on my social networks, all of that. So I'm going to leave that up and I'm going to look through the questions for this evening. Okay. Kai, Kai, thank you for being here. You're a constant in the rooms with me. I'm always happy to have you and you always have good questions. Let's see what Kai asked this evening. If being able to finish somebody's sentence before they can because you know what they are going to say or they might need the right words, is that a sign of being a good listener or is that listening to reply? It's not a sign of being a good listener and it's not a sign of being empathetic of others. Let people struggle through their words. If they ask you for your help or ask you to finish their sentence, then do it. However, if you're doing that automatically, no, it's not the sign of being a good listener. Actually, it's the opposite. Great question. Thank you. Okay, I'm seeing some comments here. Let's see. Oh, Mike asks, I'm joining a couple minutes late. What is the presenter's name? You can see that on the screen. My name is Rob. Thanks for joining us tonight, Mike. Okay, let's see. Willie, thank you for being with us this evening. Glad to have you. Willie asks, Is it okay to be silent when someone has wronged you by sending you text and calling out your name and degrading you? Yes, it's okay to be silent. In fact, a lot of times silence is one of the greatest replies. So yes, if somebody's calling you out, treating you poorly, that sort of thing, and you're silent, no problem. Thank you for that question, Willie. Okay. Okay, it looks like, well, Raven really didn't have a question. It was more of a comment of, um, I have a very expressive face and you want to get better with that. Yeah, Raven. So with your expressive face, there are things that we can't control and they're called micro expressions. Those are things that just happen automatically. However, if you can really build the skill of monitoring and controlling your facial expressions, chances are you'll make better connection with people. Thank you for that. Okay. Kai, you have another question. Kai asks, what if you're the one always there to celebrate everyone else's wins, but always have to celebrate your own wins by yourself, due to people always being busy or just not showing up? Well, at this point, Kai, and you've asked a similar question like this before, and I'll reply to you again on this. This is when you need to look at the people you're surrounding yourself with and decide whether those are the right people. Now, if it happens to be people that you have to be around, then you would just continue to find ways to celebrate your own wins and not worry about them. If you feel like that's something you need more of in your life, find different groups to be part of, find different people that are actually going to help celebrate you as well as you celebrate them. Thank you for that. Okay. Oh, okay. Jessica asks, and Jessica, thank you for your question. Thank you for being with us tonight. Jessica asks, what's the difference between ghosting and going silent? This is a great question. Going silent means that you actually have closure. And by closure, I mean instead of just not replying to somebody and ghosting them, which is an act of cowardice, it's a cowardly act. You you give somebody closure and you say, I'm no longer responding to you. And then you could go silent after that. After you establish closure, you can now go silent. If you're just ghosting somebody and not replying to them without closure, that's when it's a cowardly act. I hope that helps, Jessica. That's a really good question. Thank you for that. Okay, Christopher. Christopher says or asks, Christopher, thank you for being with us tonight. I am an open and honest person. I've actually been told I'm too honest. Why is this perceived negatively? Well, when you're too honest, a lot of times it depends on your approach, Christopher. So if it's being perceived negatively, chances are it's your approach with your honesty. Some people need things delivered a little bit softer. Some people want things delivered a little bit harsher. I would encourage you to look at your approach. If your honesty is being perceived negatively, chances are it's about your approach and the way you're handling it or the way you're delivering your honesty and your message. Sometimes people don't want your input. So if you feel like you're honest a lot of times, chances are people may not even want that. So you may not want to give your honesty. You may not want to speak about it at all. But really, when it comes to negative perception around honesty, chances are it's your approach. Thank you for that question. Okay. Stacy asks, and Stacy, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm new to this workshop and I want to know what's the best way to be confident in front of the audience or crowd of people. Great question. So, Stacy, when you want to be confident in front of an audience or crowd of people, start with smaller crowds. Maybe go to networking events, um, things to where maybe there's not a lot of pressure on you, and you could start to practice your communication skills. Then you could move to bigger audiences or bigger crowds, but you need to build that confidence somehow. And normally that's in smaller bites. Get good being comfortable in front of a small group of people that you might be already comfortable with. Then you would move on and start to become comfortable with a smaller group that you may not be comfortable with. And once you start to, the more you do that and the more consistently you do that, Stacy, the more confidence you build. And then when you're in front of a bigger audience or crowd of people, you've already built some thicker skin around that. I hope that's helpful to you. Thank you for your question and welcome to the program. Okay, there's a couple more questions. Virginia, thank you for being in the room again. I always appreciate you. Glad to have you back. Virginia asks, is it to treat people and those that treat you accordingly? I'm pretty sure I know what you're asking, Virginia. So if somebody's treating you well, you treat them well. Um, yes, however, you can level up. And even if somebody's not treating you well, respectfully exit the conversation or exit the relationship, anything like that. I have the notion of treat somebody, how they're treating me plus a level. I always want to level up my communication with people and my connection with people. However, if it is something that's not positive, I will exit. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you, Virginia. Okay. Kai, you have another question. Kai asks, what if you're honest and people ask for your opinion, but they get mad? They don't get the sugar-coated answer they were expecting. How do we fix that? Well, if people are asking your opinion, it's a good idea to ask them, how forward do you want me to be with the opinion? How direct do you want me to be? And then if they tell you how they want to be communicated with, you could adjust your communication. That's one way to go about that. Thank you for that. Okay. Raven asks, do you have a workshop on anxious habits? Yes, not specifically on anxious habits, but there are some of my other programs that address those types of things. So I encourage you to look on 99's calendar, and I have several programs that address those types of things, Raven. Thank you for that. Okay, that looks like that's all the questions for the evening. I'm grateful and thankful for all of you being with me this evening. If you happen to scan this QR code, this will take you to my bio site, which you can find out whatever information you would like about me. I'm grateful for the time this evening. I'm going to do one last sweep for questions. And yep, that's it. Okay, everybody. Have an absolutely wonderful evening. I'm glad to be with all of you. Please join me for a future presentation that I give, and we'll talk soon. Take care.